Each night throughout May 1889, the people of Plaistow in East London flocked to Upper Road in the hope of catching a glimpse of a ghostly figure that had been seen within the grounds of the East London cemetery. At the time, the cemetery was only 17 years old, having been laid out in 1872. It was the cemetery in which Jack the Ripper victim Elizabeth Stride had been buried in October 1888, and it would be where the later Whitechapel murders victims, Alice Mackenzie, the unknown woman remembered only as the Pinchin Street torso, and Francis Coles, would also be laid to rest. The rumour that a restless wraith was haunting the cemetery began towards the end of April 1889, and by the last week of May, the news of the mysterious apparition's nocturnal appearances had spread throughout the East End, and each night as many as 200 people would make their way to the lonely stretch of Upper Road that passed the cemetery in the hope of catching a fleeting glimpse of the ghost through the railings. And by all accounts, they made quite a nuisance of themselves. On the night of Saturday, May the 25th, 16-year-old George Orchard, a brass moulder of 77 Grange Road, just around the corner from Upper Road, decided to see for himself what all the fuss was about. Stepping from his house, he headed along Grange Road, turned left into Upper Road, and pushed his way through the milling throng that was gathered along the cemetery fence, eagerly awaiting the spectre's appearance. And they waited, and they waited, and they waited, and they waited. At around 10:30 p.m, somebody noticed that the flare from the gas lamp that George Orchard was standing beneath was illuminating that section of Upper Road, and it was suggested that there might be a better chance of seeing the ghost if the light was extinguished. "Put out the light!" went up the chant from the crowd, and George Orchard, eager to oblige, shinned up the post of the gas lamp and turned it off. Sliding back down, he had barely touched the ground when he felt a firm hand on his shoulder. Turning, he found himself face to face with a stern-looking police constable who arrested him and marched him off to the police station, where George Orchard was charged with disorderly conduct and with wilfully extinguishing a public street lamp at Upper Road, Plaistow. On the morning of Monday, the 27th of May, Mr. Ernest Baggerly, stipendiary magistrate for West Ham, took his place on the bench and readied himself to hear the cases of all those who had been arrested in his jurisdiction over the course of the weekend. Baggerly was 39 years old. He was an esteemed barrister and had been the Member of Parliament for Brixton in South London before resigning his seat in 1887 to take up the position of stipendiary magistrate for West Ham. I would love to say that the pressure of the cases he had presided over had prematurely aged him, but this caricature of him actually dates from 1905. With Mr. Baggerly seated and ready, the court usher called the first case, and George Orchard took his place in the dock. Mr. Fowler, the court clerk, read out the charges of disorderly conduct and wilfully extinguishing a public street lamp, and asked the defendant what his plea was. George Orchard, however, opted to provide an explanation and told the court that he had got up the lamppost and turned the gas down as the people wanted to see the ghost. The only spirits Ernest Baggerly had anticipated encountering in his courtroom that morning were the ones imbibed by those who had been charged with drunkenness over the weekend, so on hearing the defendant's explanation, he did a double take. "The what?" he spluttered as the courtroom erupted into laughter. "A ghost?" "Yes," replied Orchard, "and I was asked to put the lamp out." And with that, the case that the newspapers dubbed the Plaistow Ghost got under way. The first witness was Constable Dewberry, the officer who had arrested George Orchard. He explained that at about 10:30 the other night he had been on duty in Upper Road, Plaistow, when his attention was attracted by a crowd of about 200 people who were waiting to see the ghost. They had, he explained, an idea that if the lamps were turned down, they could see it better. The witness saw the prisoner go up a lamppost and turn the light out, and he added that every night for the last month there had been a large disorderly crowd about that road waiting to see the ghost. Mr. Baggerly's curiosity was aroused. "Has anyone seen it?" he asked. "I have been on duty there for a month," Dewberry replied. "And you've not seen it?" the magistrate pressed. "No," responded the constable, adding, "the crowd is always very disorderly." At this point Mr. Fowler, the clerk to the court, put his twopence-worth in. "They have found out now what the ghost is, haven't they?" he inquired of the constable. Dewberry shuffled awkwardly. "It has been discovered that it was a granite tombstone. When the light caught it at a certain angle, it gave the appearance of a ghost," he responded. "This road is close to the cemetery, is it not?" Ernest Bagley continued. "Yes, it is very lonely," the constable confirmed. Mr. Bagley couldn't resist a little light banter to add a touch of levity to the proceedings. "Not lonely if there were 200 people there," he quipped. Ignoring the magistrate's remark, the constable continued with his testimony. "It is a long road and there are no houses. The crowds are very disorderly. They push people off the path, and skylarking generally goes on." "It must be stopped somehow, of course," Bagley interrupted. "But how far this can be done by dealing with this little boy, I don't know." Sensing that the magistrate was actually sympathetic towards him, Orchard piped up from the dock. "The cemetery keeper, a grave digger, and another man went into the cemetery, and they hollered out, 'Turn out the light!' I did so, and just at that moment the constable took me." "The cemetery keeper has been out several nights with a gun to keep the roughs away," Constable Dewberry explained. At which point the court clerk, Mr. Fowler, weighed in with a strange question. "There is some suspicion of body snatching?" he asked the constable. Dewberry looked puzzled. "I've never heard of it," he replied. Mr. Bagley apparently had heard of it. "I read it in this morning's paper. Perhaps the press will be for the police for once." Then, turning to Orchard, the magistrate warned him, "Well, you'd better not put the lamps out again, and I think the police had better see that some extra constables are put on that spot for duty." Inspector Bishop, who was watching the case on behalf of the police, then spoke out on Orchard's behalf. "All right, your worship. The lad is a good boy." He did as he was told, the magistrate announced, and, turning to Orchard, he told him he could go. And with that, the prisoner was released. However, Mr. Ernest Bagley had not heard the last of the Plaistow ghost. A few days later, on Wednesday the 29th of May, another individual appeared before him charged with extinguishing a public lamp on Upper Road. The London Evening Standard took up the story in its edition of Friday the 31st of May. The London Ghost Again. At the West Ham Police Court on Thursday, William Ford, 28, labourer, of High Hill, Ferry Lane, Lea Bridge, was charged with extinguishing a public lamp at Upper Road, Plaistow, near the East London Cemetery, where there are now rumours of the appearance of a ghost at night time. Ford was insistent that he was not guilty of extinguishing the lamp, adding that he simply put his hat in front of it, as it was supposed to be a ghost. Police Constable Marshall said that at 11:15 p.m. the previous day he was on duty in Upper Road, Plaistow, when he saw the defendant climbing a lamppost. He saw him extinguish the light of the lamp. There were 30 or 40 people about, and he caught hold of Ford before he got off the lamppost and took him to the station. Mr. Bagley looked up from the bench. "Is this the road we had mentioned the other day in connection with this ghost?" he quizzed the constable. "Yes, your worship," Constable Marshall replied. William Ford then spoke up to defend himself. "Someone asked my opinion, and I said that I did not believe it was a ghost, but that it was the reflection of the light, and I put my hat in front of it." Mr. Bagley turned to the constable. "Are you quite satisfied the lamp was put out?" he asked him. "Yes, sir," replied P.C. Marshall. Henry Luffman then stepped into the witness box and told the court that about 11:15 the previous night, as he was walking towards Plaistow, coming by the hill near the cemetery, he saw a number of people on the path. "They said there was a ghost, and I looked over and saw something." "Were you with the prisoner?" Mr. Bagley asked. "Yes," replied Luffman. "He said he did not think it was a ghost, but I said, 'It is.' He said it was the light, and I said, 'Then put your hat over it.' And he did, but I could see the same thing. As soon as he came down, the constable caught him. I'm sure the lamp was not out." The prisoner, in his defence, said that he did not turn the light out, and what he did was nothing but devilment. He did not think any harm about it. It was supposed to be a ghost, and he thought there would be no harm in hiding the light. Is Marshal and extra policeman put on duty in consequence of this? Mr. Bagley asked Inspector Bishop, who was watching on behalf of the police.
Yes, your worship, was the inspector's reply.
Mr. Bagley then addressed the prisoner in the dock. In consequence of what took place here on Monday, they have had to put another constable on duty to put a stop to this, and it must be put a stop to. On Monday, the lad was only between 15 and 16. You are 28 and ought to be ashamed of yourself. Under all the circumstances, I fine you 10 shillings and 8 shillings costs, or 10 days imprisonment. If men again come before me for this, they will go to prison without the option of paying a fine. Will you give me time to pay? William Ford asked. No, certainly not, snapped Mr. Bagley. And with that, the case drew to a conclusion. Newspapers across the country picked up the story of the Plaistow ghost, and it must be said, quite a few of them enjoyed a little fun at the expense of the good people of Plaistow. The Middleton Guardian, on Saturday the 1st of June, informed its readers, in these days, ghosts are seldom seen by more than one person at a time, but at Plaistow, one of these nocturnal and shadowy visitors has been seen by hundreds of persons at one and the same time in a road close to the cemetery. Every night for a month a crowd had assembled to see the ghost, but on last Saturday night they were all disappointed. They waited till it was quite dark and strained their eyes till they were weary, but no ghost made its appearance. At last one of the would-be spectators cried out to a young fellow who had climbed the lamp-post, "Turn out the gas that the people may see the ghost." The order was obeyed instantly, and a moment afterwards the young fellow was in the hands of a policeman who explained all about the affair to the magistrate on Monday. It seems the ghost was an upright tombstone, which, with the help of a light that shone upon it in a somewhat peculiar way, and the imaginations of the people, looked marvellously like a ghost. The offender against the law was discharged after the explanation, and the silly people of Plaistow may know, if they will take the trouble to read the papers, what ridiculous fools they have made of themselves. They showed their sagacity in one thing, however, namely, in arriving at the conclusion that ghosts have an aversion to gaslight. No respectable spirit walks the earth in anything but cold moonlight, and no wise man goes ghost hunting among granite tombstones at 10:30 at night. The Whitchurch Herald couldn't resist a little supernatural wordplay in its edition of Saturday the 15th of June. The 2 or 3 people who went to see the Plaistow ghost and eventually succeeded in getting locked up unfortunately did not see the ghost in the churchyard, but were rewarded by making the acquaintance of the inspector at the station. Gradually, though, the nightly crowds accepted that their ghost was nothing more than a trick of the light, and soon the nights became a lot quieter on Upper Road as the ghost-seeking hordes turned their attentions to other pursuits, and the protagonists in the saga drifted back into the obscurity from whence they had emerged. In 1901, Ernest Bagley became a police magistrate, and he went on to serve on the bench at Greenwich, Tower Bridge and Lambeth police courts before ill health forced his retirement in 1913. However, and probably much to his relief, he never presided over another case that involved ghosts again. Visitors to the cemetery today can enjoy a tranquil oasis and an hour or so spent wandering its tree-lined paths, reading the inscriptions on the gravestones and memorials, is a rewarding, if poignant, experience. Upper Road is not so lonely and isolated as it once was. A line of houses now occupy its opposite side from the cemetery. It can, however, be quite a spooky and unsettling thoroughfare to traverse, especially on a dark winter's night when the shadows can play strange tricks on your eyes, and you instinctively know that it is not the sort of place at which it is wise to linger for long.